I think we are. Everybody was in bad dream. Then he get up from sleep. He find a new life, really, because all government and the big President Mubarak, still the people, really, still his people. We was have bad future. Why, my friend, I was have 2 houses. I sell it. One in 67 and one in 73. The wall 67 with Israel, we will lose. 70, also we have no tourists. My business all for tourists. So I have no business. People want money. My children want money for school, for doctor. So I sell the second house. Then I say no problem. When I have a good future for my children, better than any money. Yeah.
I took this friend and we went out as reporters, and we tried to talk to people in different areas. So I've been asking these questions like, did you hear about protests on the 25th? No. Nobody heard about it. This gave me a very good lesson at the end of the day that the internet community is only for the internet community. It never interacts with the real street, and that's why we've always been failing. Because we've been calling for big protests and revolutions before and always failed. Then I asked the question, what do you think about Mubarak and the government? And like 2/3 of the people gave me very negative opinions. Then I was asking those that said negative things, okay, now I'm telling you that there will be protests on the 25th, so how about that? Are you going? Of course not. The answers varied because they think it's futile, or because they think it's too dangerous, or because they have to work and feed their family every day. If they stop, they can't feed their family. So I asked this last question. Now you're telling me that you're against the regime, and I'm telling you that there will be large protests, but you still tell me that you will not go out. Would you ever go out? When will you ever go out? And the answers were very positive, but very difficult. It was, I'll go out when everybody else goes out. I was very frustrated until some idea came to me the following day. And how about if we can give them the illusion that people are out? If you take a small number of people in a narrow space, they would seem like a lot. So the idea was to try to approach all different groups of volunteers that I can get through different people. I try to give them crash courses on how to distribute flyers, how to write graffiti on the walls, so that the people in those areas would know that something is going to happen on the 25th. The volunteers would go on that day at a good hour, going up and down the small alleys, the narrow alleys, shouting very loudly, so they would start attracting some young people, and then they go around the area to try to get more crowds, and finally to start heading to the central point in every city that we want to occupy. It seemed like a very ambitious plan, and I thought it would fail at most parts, but we had to try.
All the people going there, and they named it the Friday of Anger. And all the Egyptian people go there a lot, like millions, and all the streets and all the cities, and it was so nice. I was like watching, I never imagined that this will happen in Egypt. I was sitting with my friend and we were watching them at the TV. But they get so angry when like they treat the people like some people is praying, and they came by the car and they like shoot them by the water and killing some of them and like treat all and hit the women and the childs and shoot on them like they just want to kill people. They don't have anything to do. They don't have another way to solve the problem. They just have this way, the force to solve their problem. And after that he say, yalla, yalla, don't be afraid. And I say, I'm not afraid, I just like don't know the situation. He say, we are together, and we went to Tahrir Square. I see all the people put tents, and it become like so popular. I don't know them. I just like sitting and looking at the people. I become with them in the conversation, and we become friends. And me and them, we bring a tent and we put it. It was like every day we see what's going on with the people who need help or who need anything, and we were just like planning what we have to do. In the morning, after that, I check what's going on in Tahrir and the period that I wasn't there. When I go out to Talat Harb, and they say that 2 guys get shot, they killed. Some doctors, they make a clinic inside the mosque. We go inside, like a lot of people who get shot by the central security was like just thrown in the floor. It's like it's a hard moment. Was like all blood, all the place full with blood, and like a lot of doctors, they just want to solve. They want to just to help them. I was watching like some tanks of the soldiers, and all the people say the soldiers and the people is one hand, and it was so nice. Like you see the soldiers like with us, the armed forces, like. On our side, we remove a regime was like sitting for 30 years. In 18 days, we broke it. You know? And the day that Hosni Mubarak leave, we saw millions of the people is just celebrate, shouting and fireworks, and they came to us and we hugged them. And we started like a lot of them started crying. Like from the happiness. It was so nice moment. It was the best in my life. Since I born till now.
Well, there is something general that I would say. That in Tahrir Square, the magnificence of Tahrir Square was the self-organizing of the Egyptian people. We have no government, but we have self-organizing squads for cleaning the square, for supporting the protesters with food, for healing in the field hospitals. The self-organizing with no government, I think this was the magnificence of Tahrir Square. لازم سافرت معاهم؟ لا طبعا وطبعا المبدا الاجمالي احسن كتير بس انت ما ينفعش ليه؟ هي مش متجوزه. But the personal experience I had, I was working in this field hospital, and this guy came in with a scar, a wounded skull, you know. So we stitched him, and he went back to fight again, and he come back with another head injury, and we stitched him, and we said, okay, you lost a lot of blood, you know, skull wounds usually need to refuse bleeding, so have some rest and go back or have some rest here in the hospital. And he refused. This was in camel battle, okay, and then he went back for the third time, and when he came the last time, he came dead. He had a deep head injury, and we couldn't save him. He was a young man, 22 years old, and I had a conversation, and I saw him for 2 times. I stitched him with my own hands, and the third time he came dead. This is a scene I have never forgotten, and I will never forget. Of course, the amount of repression from the regime was so massive that we could not alone withstand it. But at the moment of the step down of Mubarak and the revolution, it seems that we can now stand up and ask for our own rights. And this happened everywhere in Egypt. Nearly at the same time, in every hospital in Egypt there was protests, strikes, kicking of management. But as a socialist, I also thought, this is very good, but how can I preserve this movement? So I thought of the independent trade union. When I gave the idea to my colleagues here in the hospital, I found approval. I didn't find rejection. After I find it appealing to them, we started to proceed. And then the idea, just after it came from my own head, became everybody's ideas, and everybody participated maybe more than I am. You know, the conditions as the reign of Mubarak and now are not so different. The nurses are still taking £1 per shift, 1 Egyptian pound, okay? Still, the young physician like me are taking about 300 Egyptian pound per month. Very miserable conditions. That's what make most of the Egyptian physicians work more than one job. I have this job here in the government, and I have another one in a private hospital, and I have a third one in an outpatient clinic in the evening. So we are working very long hours, and the conditions are much more miserable for the nurses. If this revolution have not led to the improvement of their living conditions, of the services they are having, then it has done nothing. Most the regular Egyptian citizen does not care about referendum or elections or who will be president, as much as he's earning to have a decent meal, a decent wage from one job, of a decent health care service.
Twitter, I think, is really important. I mean, I use it whenever I'm going to a demonstration or a strike or something like that. I've always have my phone with me, and I just try and communicate what's happening on the ground. Whenever something's happening, for example, 2 days ago there was the police and the Central Security Forces. They started to attack protesters in Tahrir, and I happened to be there at the same time, and so I started tweeting, you know, that the police are here. They've started to attack. They're throwing tear gas bombs. Now they're chasing us into this street. They're chasing us into that street. A lot of people who were seeing this on Twitter actually came down and started to join the protests against the police. When the army came down during the first few days of the revolution, the people were very happy to see the army because there's so much hatred towards the police. They thought the army would be there to, you know, kind of help them or rescue them or whatever, and so there was always this chant that the army and the people are one. Through time, and it's been almost 5 months now, since a little bit over 5 months since the revolution, we see that the army, now, which is now kind of in charge of the country, hasn't done a lot of what the protesters have wanted or what the revolution has demanded. People start chanting against the Mushir, you know, shortly after the revolution, but they're always a small minority. But now, every time I come to Tahrir, I see that the crowds are getting bigger and bigger who are actually chanting against the general, Tontawi, and asking him to step down and for the army to go back to the barracks and so on. So I think people are beginning to realize that the army isn't such a, you know, a holy entity, and that it can't be criticized, and that it should not be the one that's been ruling us at the moment. And a lot of the same things are happening to the protesters, like what happened 2 days ago with the police, you know, firing at the protesters and so on. So this is always getting people to rise up again, and also to see that the problem now is that we don't have Mubarak, but we have the army, and so they're rising up now against the army, which is what's replaced Mubarak and hasn't given us any change or anything.
يريد اعدام الكلب حبيب